The day the divorce became final, Mike Turner sat alone in a folding chair inside a rusted garage. The rain dripped through 3 holes in the roof. A single light bulb flickered overhead. His bank account balance glowed on his phone screen. $73.18. That was it. After legal fees, debt, and splitting assets, $73 was all he had left. His wife, Jessica, had walked away with the house, the newer car, and most of the savings. Before leaving, she delivered one final blow. "You always dream too much, Mike." Then she shook her head. "Dreams don't pay bills." And she left. For weeks, Mike replayed those words. Especially at night. When the garage was cold. When the bills piled up. When customers were nowhere to be found. The garage had belonged to his late father. A small repair shop on the edge of town. Most people considered it worthless. The paint peeled from the walls. The equipment was ancient. The office smelled like oil and dust. Even Mike had doubts. But it was all he had. One afternoon, while sweeping the floor, he found an old notebook tucked behind a workbench. His father's handwriting covered every page. Repair notes. Customer names. Business lessons. And one sentence written in large letters. "People don't come back because you're the cheapest. They come back because they trust you." Mike stared at those words for a long time. Then he got to work. He repaired every tool he could salvage. Painted the waiting room himself. Built shelves from scrap wood. Worked 14-hour days. Sometimes he skipped meals. Sometimes he slept in the office. Every dollar mattered. Every customer mattered. 3 months later, a woman arrived with a minivan. Another mechanic had quoted her nearly $3,000. Mike inspected the vehicle. The actual repair cost less than $300. When he told her the truth, she looked shocked. "You're serious?" Mike nodded. "You only need what's broken fixed." The woman cried. Not because of the repair. Because she'd been worried about feeding her kids. She told her friends. Her friends told their friends. And suddenly Mike's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Within 6 months, every service bay was busy. Within 9 months, he hired 3 employees. Within 11 months, local businesses began bringing him entire vehicle fleets. The garage was no longer surviving. It was growing. Fast. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. A regional automotive company wanted to buy a minority stake. Mike almost said no. The number they offered seemed unreal. Then a second company made a larger offer. Then a third. Soon investors were competing to get in. The garage that everyone called worthless had become one of the fastest growing independent repair businesses in the region. Exactly 1 year after the divorce, Mike sat in a renovated office overlooking the workshop floor. The garage now employed 28 people. Revenue had multiplied beyond anything he'd imagined. And for the first time in years, he felt at peace. Then his receptionist called. "Mike?" "Yeah." "You have a visitor." "Who is it?" A pause. Then. "Jessica." Mike froze. Not because he still loved her. Not because he hated her. But because some names carry entire chapters of your life. A moment later, she walked into the office. Elegant as always. Confident as always. Yet something seemed different. Less certain. She looked around. The new equipment. The busy workshop. The employees moving with purpose. The framed newspaper article on the wall. Finally she looked at Mike. "You've done well." Mike smiled politely. "We've been busy." Jessica sat down. For a few moments neither spoke. Then she opened a leather folder. Inside were financial documents. Investment papers. Proposals. Mike frowned. What is this? Jessica took a breath. Then asked a question she never imagined asking. A question that would have sounded impossible 1 year earlier. Can I buy shares in the company? Silence. Complete silence. Because the woman who once called the garage worthless now wanted to own part of it. Mike looked at the folder. Then at Jessica. Then back at the folder. A slow smile appeared on his face. But it wasn't the smile she expected. And what he said next would leave her speechless. Jessica waited. The folder sat between them on the desk. Inside were investment proposals, valuation estimates, and enough money to buy a significant stake in the company. A year ago, she would never have imagined herself asking this question. Now she was waiting for an answer. Mike looked at the folder. Then gently pushed it back toward her. Jessica's heart sank. So that's a no? Mike smiled. Not exactly. She frowned. Then what does that mean? Mike stood and walked toward the office window. Below them, mechanics worked on vehicles. Customers chatted in the waiting area. Phones rang. Tools clicked. The old garage was alive. More alive than it had ever been. Finally he turned around. Do you know what everyone thinks happened here? Jessica remained silent. They think I got lucky. He smiled. Some people think success showed up one morning and changed everything. He pointed toward the workshop floor. What they don't see are the nights I slept in that office. The days I skipped meals. The months I wondered if the lights would stay on. Jessica lowered her eyes. Because she remembered those early days. The uncertainty. The struggle. The fear. And she remembered walking away from it. Mike sat back down. I don't blame you anymore. The word surprised her. More than anything else he'd said. You don't? He shook his head. No. A pause. I was angry for a long time. Another pause. But eventually I realized something. Jessica waited. You didn't leave because I failed. He looked directly at her. You left because you stopped believing. The words hit harder than any accusation. Because they were true. Jessica swallowed. I thought I was being realistic. Mike nodded. I know. For a moment neither spoke. The silence wasn't hostile. It was honest. Then Jessica surprised herself. I followed your company for months. Mike raised an eyebrow. You did? She nodded. I saw the articles. The expansion. The contracts. The awards. A weak smile appeared. And every time, I kept thinking. She stopped.